Hello and welcome to Unews. I'm Carolina Sarassa and thank you for being with us today. We began this hour with the latest on the impeachment inquiry. Democrats saying they will subpoena a U.S. diplomat who was scheduled to testify this morning. His lawyer says he was blocked by the State Department just hours before he was set to meet with House investigators. Democrats say it is further proof that the White House is obstructing justice. Lorraine Cázares has the latest. It has been set yet for that whistleblower testimony. Meanwhile, we're learning that Ambassador Sondland called President Trump right before sending the text about no quid pro quo. We're also learning that the White House counsel's office consulted with the State Department to block Ambassador Sondland's testimony. Carolina? Thank you, Lorraine, for that report. The Trump administration will provide redacted memos to Democrats in the impeachment probe. The headache for President Trump. He's now facing strong backlash from both Democrats and Republicans after announcing he was pulling U.S. troops out of Syria. Those troops have been supporting Kurdish forces, and those forces are allies who have led the fight against ISIS. Even the president's strongest supporters are criticizing his latest shift in foreign policy. Andrea Linares has more. U.S. officials say they fear the 11,000 ISIS prisoners that the Kurds were guarding could actually escape, and refugee camps where some children are dancing under the ISIS flag could in fact become more of a breeding ground for terror groups. Carolina, now back to you. Thank you, Andrea, for that report. The Supreme Court is set to hear arguments on abortion. It is the first time President Trump's two conservative nominees, Brett Kavanaugh and Neil Gorsuch, will hear an abortion-related case. And here to talk about what to expect is Daniela Ramirez. The Supreme Court back in session. Another major issue is being considered. Jaime Garcia has more on a case that could decide the future of young immigrants, better known as dreamers. Thank you, Jaime. Now the U.S. government deficit is nearly $1 trillion. That's $200 billion more than last year. The new numbers will win the battle against vaping. 3 school districts are suing the company Juul, accusing them of endangering their students. The bill is aiming to cap nicotine levels in e-cigarettes. As the vaping crisis continues, officials in Milwaukee making a huge discovery during a drug bust. Thousands of vape accessories, a man and a woman under arrest, accused of running a drug trafficking operation out of their home. Paula Byron has more details. With mass shootings happening more and more here in the U.S., Dick's Sporting Goods announcing that it has ex-presidential candidate Julian. Scary moments at the popular Albuquerque International Balloon Fiesta. There were 3 accidents. One balloon even bursting into flames. Jorge Hernandez has a dramatic video. Now to New York, where the trial of Tony Hernandez continues. Hernandez is the brother of Honduran President Juan Orlando Hernandez. He's accused of bringing tons of cocaine into the U.S. for years under his brother's protection. Fabiola Galindo is outside the court with the latest. Fabiola.
That's right, Carolina. The testimony of Alexander Ardon continues today. He was the former mayor of Copan, an area in the border between Guatemala and Honduras. And his testimony, it's important to prosecutors here because we're talking about an elected official.
Before you go, has the Honduran president reacted to this trial at all?
Well, Carolina, the president of Honduras has said that he denies any of these accusations, saying that there are no proofs or real evidence that he is connected to any of these accusations. He says these are tales, but as you can tell, for a case to reach the higher courts of federal courts in New York, they are expecting the prosecutors to have a pretty strong case, Carolina.
And do we know, Fabiola, when the trial is supposed to reach a jury?
The trial is expected to last between 10 and 12 days. That could be up to 2 weeks. And the grand jury is, I think it's about 18 people that are part of the grand jury that are going to make a decision whether or not Tony Hernandez is found to be guilty of all these charges, Carolina.
Thank you, Fabiola, for the live report from New York City. And now to the border, where arrests continue to drop in September. The drop candidate Julian Castro is damning the Trump administration's remaining Mexico policy. Castro visited a migrant encampment in Matamoros, Mexico, Monday. There he met with a group of asylum seekers, escorting them up to cross the border. Castro said he was promised their cases would be heard, but as Nidia Cavazos reports, hours later, they were sent back to Mexico.
Texas lawyers informed our Univision team that this particular group has been forced to return to Mexico. It only took a couple of hours for U.S. officials to deny them entry into the U.S. It's an action that lawyers say is not only unjust, but illegal. For now, reporting from Brownsville, Texas for Unews, Nidia Cavazos.
Thank you, Nidia. Coming up, an Uber driver in California says she was attacked by a passenger. In just a few minutes, the driver says she was groped, kissed, and even had her eyes covered. Maite Interiano reports. Up next, find out why 4 years ago Mexico banned exotic animals from performing in traveling circuses, but that ban has created a new problem. What to do with those animals? Many circus owners say they are too expensive to keep. Paulina Gomez has more on what could happen next.
We gathered 200 animals from 19 different species that were rescued from circuses and private collections and now are enjoying a second chance at life.
Up next, they are a man's best friend. Former college cheerleader is taking on her school. She's accusing her coaches of bullying her to keep on working despite having suffered multiple concussions. Grecia Lastra has more on her story. Coming up, singer Rihanna has a new project. Today in entertainment news, a music superstar has a new book, and Broadway has movies on its mind. Miriam Arias has more. And the widely popular show Queer Eye is heading to Japan. The show, which is branded for today, I'm Carolina Sarassa, and we'll see you guys tomorrow. Hasta mañana.